Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
My name is Mike Kelly. I am the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners for Johnson County, Kansas, and I'll call to order this special called meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for Johnson County, Kansas. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner OHara.
Here.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Allenbrand is absent. Chairman Kelly.
I'm here as well. A quorum is present. Therefore, would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you all very much. At this time, this is a special called meeting, and therefore I'm going to ask the clerk to please read the required notice statement.
Notice of Special Board of County Commissioners meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. So that notice is established, and therefore we'll move to the action agenda. No. The first is an action item regarding the real estate purchase agreement with MAA Krupa Lenexa LLC. Joe Conor to provide the presentation.
Question.
Commissioner.
We have public comments published on this agenda.
Uh,
The item.
For the item, Commissioner, as we have always done with the item, the presentation is gone through, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from the public. So at this time, we're going to call on Joe Conor.
But if people have other things that they want to talk about, we're not having public comments today?
There's no general public comment session in a special called meeting. Thank you very much to Joe Conor.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Joe Conor, Assistant County Manager. We're here to talk today about the agenda item that you have in front of you. And there are three different things that are in this particular agenda item. The first is to terminate the real estate sales contracts with Max Krupa and Lenexa LLC, which is the owner of the La Quinta. The second item is to terminate the assignment agreement with Restart Incorporated, which you approved a few months ago. And then the third is to direct staff to develop options for the SLFRF funding, which is approximately $6.3 million, to bring back to you some options for that particular money with an emphasis on housing services and programs. So those are the three items. We have that all in one motion, but those are the three things we wanted to kind of go through today. So let's talk about the real estate purchase agreement for a minute. This was approved, as you were aware, from last December. There were some key conditions, and there are a lot of things that have happened with that property as far as due diligence and other activities, but there's a couple of really key conditions that needed to be satisfied before this agreement could be executed. The first was that approval of a special use permit by the city of Lenexa to operate this facility as a homeless services center, specifically with the shelter portions of that. The second was to successfully negotiate the franchise fees that are owed by the La Quinta to Wyndham, which is the parent company for the La Quinta hotel flag. And one of the things we wanted to have this special meeting for was because tomorrow, based on the last amendment to the sales agreement, we would owe another $150,000 to the owner of the La Quinta in earnest money. So that's part of the reasons why we're here, and an overview of the real estate purchase agreement itself. So on the assignment agreement with Restart, this established, the county's intent, or your intent as the Board of County Commissioners, to transfer the ownership of the hotel property if the sale was completed to Restart to be our owner and operator of the Homeless Services Center. The key condition there was that this was contingent upon the completion of the real estate sale purchase agreement. So both of these are before you today because they're kind of tied together, from a transactional standpoint. So what are our recommendations? So the key conditions have not been met. Obviously, the city of Lenexa the city council denied the special use permit application on Tuesday evening. And we have not been successful in bringing the franchise fees into the funding that's been allocated by the Board of County Commissioners for that particular expense. So we're recommending termination of both of the agreements. Again, we can avoid $150,000 payment, to the hotel owner. And again, to direct the staff to provide you with options for the SLFRF portion of that funding, which is about 6.3 million. We'd also ask that there would be an emphasis on housing programs and services as a guideline. And I use the term guideline to say, we always like to have staff be thinking outside the box. We talk about being innovative. We'd like to have not only the housing continuum be considered, but other things that could be of a possibility. We don't want to limit it to just what's on that housing continuum, but in the housing arena. So that's kind of why I'm using the term guideline here. So it's a very quick, brief presentation, but that's all I have now, and I stand for questions.
Mr. Conor, thank you very much. We're going to call on those who had registered in advance for public comments. So I'd ask you to step aside at this time and ask the clerk to prepare the technology for public comments.
Point of order.
Yes, Commissioner.
When the folks have been talking to agenda items in the past, they have been broadcast. Are we turning the broadcast off?
No, Commissioner. The technology, the clock and
Okay.
the technology.
Thank you. Just wanted to make clear since you do censor the public comments. Thank you.
We ready?
Chairman, we're ready.
Thank you so much. First is Ben Hobbert.
Ben Hobbert, Westwood Hills. I read the briefing sheet. I was a little taken aback by the termination payment of $500,000. I thought that had all been set in stone. And looking back at the April 18th briefing sheet, it's not exactly clear, but evidently that wasn't fully disclosed to the public at any stage until right now. I'm going to give to the board 8 copies of some suggestions for alternative uses of the funds, given the restrictions of the SLFRF. Undoubtedly, these are just my initial musings. I don't expect all of them to be adopted. I do expect and hope that they will engender some discussion. Number one, winter emergency shelter. Given the SLFRF funding, you can fund or spend up through 2026. You could conceivably go beyond that date with subgrants. But so I think the number one priority should be to assure that we have all the materials and all the commitments to have emergency shelter for the next 3 winters at least. 2, the SLFRF regulations allow an interagency agreement to meet obligations. So if you have a commitment by another agency within the government to do something and you have specific guidelines, then you can do so without actually contracting the money before year end 2024. And I attach a copy of the Q&A 17.6 from the SLFRF regulations that sets forth those requirements. Undoubtedly, Mr. Conor is already on top of this, but I do it nonetheless. 3, and I suppose this will engender some ridicule, but portable shower and restroom pods that are movable, that can be placed anywhere in the county. I envision 10 to 12 of those. And then 4thly, incentives to reduce the tear downs of affordable housing that occur in the county.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hobbert.
you.
Next is Jillo Conor.
Jillo Conor from Overland Park. I'm so happy that the Lenexa City Council supported their planning commission and voted down the World Homeless Shelter the other night. Finally, common sense has prevailed. I want to clarify for everyone that the only reason we've been dealing with this project is because Mike Kelly took on this plan. That's the only reason. But for him, the concept of a homeless shelter would have never been pursued by a government entity on the backs of the Johnson County taxpayers. This was a resume builder for him and nothing else. His virtue signaling has cost Johnson County and the city of Lenexa and all of us citizens a lot of time and money. We are not against helping the homeless, but it is not for the taxpayers. That kind of project is for the private sector only. Why Mike Kelly wants to use our tax dollars for this is a mystery. If Johnson County has $10 million laying around, reduce our taxes or use it to improve Johnson County infrastructure. Use it wisely. And I want to let everyone know that the four on the BOCC who supported this project with Chairman Kelly and voted against Commissioner O'Hara's two amendments to keep this for Johnson County residents only and to keep it for American citizens only are Shirley Allenbrand, Jeff Myers, Becky Fast, and Janae Hanslick. None of them were at the meeting the other night, but Commissioner O'Hara and Commissioner Ashcraft were. Where were you all? You four need to be brave and quit supporting this chair. We have a chance to replace Shirley Allenbrand and Jeff Myers in November by voting in Mike Storm and Mark Hamill, and we must retain Commissioner Charlotte O'Hara to bring some common sense back to the BOCC. We will do everything we can to make sure the citizens of Johnson County know what you've been doing and what you've been trying to do on the backs of us taxpayers. You five have certainly not been upholding your oaths of office to conduct yourself with the best interests of your citizens and our money at heart. It is time for this irrational behavior and spending to stop. Thank you. This concludes my comments.
Next is Galen Van Horn.
Galen Van Horn, Lenexa. As a Lenexa resident, the Lenexa Planning Commission and city staff made the correct decision to deny the special use permit. This was the wrong place at the wrong time. Helping the homeless is a concern for many of us, and we do care for them, specifically those that are Johnson County homeless. As you reassess options, it will be important to encourage and motivate nonprofits like Hillcrest, Transitional, and City Union Mission to be very much involved. These typically do not require any government funding. And it's important not to look for non-government agencies, NGOs, and those that are in desperate need of government funding. This homeless issue is best resolved by those who are in the private sector. Thank you.
Next is Lena Zeller.
Lena Zeller, Spring Hill. I was at Tuesday night's 6.5-hour Lenexa City Council meeting. I was also at the first meeting held by the Lenexa Planning Commission. Both meetings came to the conclusion that the homeless shelter, as presented, isn't a good idea. I and many others agree that we do need a homeless shelter in Johnson County, but one that would put the residents of Johnson County first. That isn't in such a populated area, and one in which the building will not cost twice the amount it's worth. It's the taxpayers that are funding this, and thankfully there was one Lenexa Council city member who mentioned this. I'm no expert in running a business, and I even saw holes and inconsistencies between each of Restart's presentations. Restart CEO was asked questions by the council members, and her answers just left us with more questions. Word salad is the term I would use to describe her answers. As mentioned at the council meeting, the hotel is currently in business, was 70% occupied when a council member called to check on current occupancy, and is rated 5th best hotel in the area. The better use of the facility is to allow the owner to make restorations to the property and continue to run it as a hotel. And you will still get your highly coveted taxes from this business. Thank you.
Next is Debbie Detmer.
Hi, I'm Debbie Detmer of Shawnee. This board has not listened to the speakers at this meeting as we pleaded with you to stop these contracts this whole year. I hope you have learned that we are many voices and that this was proven through the Lenexa Planning Commissions and the City Council meetings. You have wasted money and time. You have bullied your way through and you have failed. If you were truly trying to serve the homeless in Johnson County, you would have partnered with an organization like the City Union Mission, which has a proven record in that area. Yet you ignored them, not even at the table. Restart is an NGO born out of the federal government's American Rescue Plan that gave billions of dollars to agencies for the express purpose of resettling refugees. You are not trying to help our homeless or house the homeless. You are looking for resettlement areas for illegals in hopes of more Democratic votes, in my opinion. And I understand that the Restart homeless shelter in Missouri is about to close due to lack of funds. That would have happened here too. unless we taxpayers paid for it. I'm sure you are here to finally cancel the contracts with La Quinta and Restart. I do not trust you to leave it there. I assume you have something up your sleeve. Maybe this money can be used to help us on our taxes. The homeless shelter is needed for Johnson County residents only, and it needs to be operated by a city union or an organization that can manage the operations without the government, county, and city taxes. Let's buy land for them to build tiny homes. One more thing, you called this special meeting, yet your managers are unable to permit that the disabled or the working class come to speak virtually. Again, they can't do their job. This is despicable, and I think that it may be against the law. Thank you.
Next is Hannah Jeffrey.
My name is Hannah Jeffrey. I live in Lenexa, and I was also at every meeting for the entire time. I'm here as a representative of the Good Faith Network. We cover over 36 faith organizations in every single one of your districts. On Tuesday night, my pastor, Tim Suttle, spoke before a crowd gathered at the Good Faith Network prayer vigil outside Lenexa City Hall before the council meeting. You might have seen it on the news. There was a lot of optimistic and hopeful energy in the air. Tim said plainly that what we are up against is a system born through a history of redlining and exclusion, one that keeps more than 250 people homeless on any given night here in Johnson County. Elected officials, like city council members and like you county commissioners, while we didn't create that system, you are in a position to change it. We had hoped that our system would change in a significant way on Tuesday night. Renee and I delivered the Good Faith Network position statements on Tuesday, and our network also turned out 14 other Lenexa residents to provide public comment. We did everything we could to throw a weight behind this, and we were very pleased when over 60% of Lenexa residents who spoke were in favor, and over 70% of all speakers were in favor. I want to thank the county for last week's letter that pledged to provide additional CIT officers, increase mental health co-responders. You heard Lenexa's concerns and formulated a solution that resolved one of the key issues raised by the city staff report. The Good Faith Network did our best, and we know that the BOCC and the county staff did their best to see the HSC come to fruition. We are with you, and we will be with you in the next chapter as we keep up the push to functional zero, making homelessness in Johnson County rare, brief, and non-recurring. Thank you and bless you for this very important work.
Next is Renee Loya.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Renee Loya. I come to you this morning as a Lenexa resident and a member of the Good Faith Network. Over 200 of our network members attended either the August Planning Commission meeting and/or Tuesday night's City Council meeting. We are sharing in the feeling of deep disappointment for the Commission and the Council's recent decisions. However, we are also here before you this morning to share our conviction that the work is not over. You saw us speak at the City Council meetings for Prairie Village, Shawnee, Mission, Olathe, Leawood, and Fairway. You saw us come before this body multiple times in support of the HSC. The Good Faith Network has been beside you at each turn as the project evolved, and we hope you have felt our support. We hope that we've demonstrated exactly how we can work with you in good faith to move the needle to our common goals. As Council Member Melanie Aurora said Tuesday night before her vote to approve the permit, this is a responsibility that we've been dodging for decades, and it's a responsibility that will simply not go away the moment we reject this proposal. The moment is now. I believe that reaching functional zero by 2029 is not only our responsibility, but it is achievable. Council Member Aurora's comment brought applause from an otherwise silent audience Tuesday night. We celebrate her bold leadership and willingness to hear the public outcry for action. Chairman Kelly, we want to celebrate hearing echoes of your State of the County goal. Your vision and your leadership is garnering broader support, and we can't wait to see the next bold steps towards 2029. So while Lenexa's decision to deny the special use permit means that this purchase agreement be terminated, and your item today may be accompanied by a feeling of defeat, please take hope that the bigger goal of functional zero is still very much alive and well. We haven't lost faith. In fact, we believe that it's abundantly clear now, more than ever, that the moment to convene and propose a comprehensive plan is upon us. We will remain standing with you as we move forward into the next chapter of the work to address the homelessness in Johnson County.
Thank you, Ms. Loya. Next is Andrew Cross.
Andrew Cross from Shawnee. I'll be looking for the Form 990s of this organization. I was unable to find it on their website. There is the definite concern of the expansion of social workers in bed with government by this board. There's this remaining issue I didn't see posted about the 76 cents for every Johnson Countyan that was approved for this project. I'm also concerned about Christian organizations stating they're going to sue government to force the release of funds. Jeff Myers, I hope Johnson County Utilities has money to finish the 2-year stalled Quivira road work that you guys started. Thank you.
All right, next is Calvin Hayden.
Hi, I'm Calvin Hayden, Gardner, Kansas. Redemption. Redemption's a great thing. Redemption, there's 3 parts of redemption. There's 3 parts to redemption. One is you acknowledge you made a mistake and you own it. I learned that many years ago from Fred Allen Brand, that you make a mistake, you put your hat in your hand, you acknowledge it, and you fix it. Second part is understanding you made a mistake and owning it. Third is you try to fix it and beg for forgiveness. That needs to happen. You know, as sheriff, we deal with 17 different cities, and I hope you guys have learned you don't shove anything at the cities and expect them to buy off on it. It takes a lot of work. There's not one person that's here that doesn't think we need to help our homeless population. There's not one. But there are systems that work. There are systems in Florida that work, where the entire community, it's a community problem. The whole community has to come together. That's businesses, that's hospitals, that's mental health, that are all law enforcement. All of these organizations come together. And down there, they buy a warehouse and they split it up, and they offer all kinds of programs to help. They offer mental health treatment, medical. Everybody's involved in it. You don't need an NGO to run this. It only gets in the way. Guys, everything government touches, they screw it up. Faith-based people do it so much better. Let them have it and do it. I will be submitting a request for part of this $10 million where I feel we need to be funded. Just as an example, the $500,000 that's gone would have paid for about 5 of the officers we requested in last year's budget. We need help. These men and women out here need help, and they're the ones that deal with the homeless population where the rubber meets the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hayden. I believe that's all the registered public commenters we have for today. So we'll ask Joe Conor to come back for conversation, questions, direction from the board. Mr. Conor, let me start by saying thank you. I know that you and others on the board have, on the staff have worked very hard on this and diligently in partnership with a lot of different entities. So I want to say thank you to that. Thank you to all the public commenters who came out today and people who have been involved in conversation around this topic for well over a year. And really well before that, when you look at studies that have been done, when you look at planning and recognition of the need in the community. So I remain heartened by the momentum. I remain heartened by those conversations, and I appreciate the work that has been done. I think it's pretty clear today that we need to take swift action because we want to keep as many of the state and local fiscal recovery fund dollars available as possible to be able to put those toward meritorious investments investments in programs, investments in services, investments in people. And so while I had hoped that we wouldn't have to do so, I also recognize that there's a lot of good things that are yet to be done. So I have some more comments, but I want to make sure that the board has an opportunity for questions at this time, if there are questions from the board regarding today's action. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Conor, you mentioned the franchise fee that we were unable to negotiate a settlement which would be within the budget that we had set forth. When did you know that?
I think that was prior to one of our executive sessions that we had just recently.
But, okay, but that was discussed, but in conversations, you were negotiating. What I'm getting at is that shouldn't the Lenexa City Council been notified that actually one of the contingencies within the contract was not fulfilled prior to them taking action? Because that, not having that franchise fee negotiated by tomorrow was actually a stipulation that would have triggered us to say no to this contract.
Well, it's my understanding that the conversations were ongoing with the company. There was a dispute about the amounts. It wasn't finished yet. And so I wanted to report that out today, that because of the SUP and that conversation hadn't happened either.
Mr. Conor, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I do, just to clarify and not get this into confusion for the public. Ms. Trent, would you mind addressing this just briefly?
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for your question, Commissioner O'Hara. For clarification, if you recall, the application for the SUP permit with the City of Lenexa was filed by the assignee Restart. So the underlying purchase agreement was not part and parcel of their application. It was a contingency for them that's separate and apart from that item.
But it was not separate and apart from our contract to buy the facility, which was part and parcel of this whole thing. So what I'm saying is that since we had not been able to successfully negotiate that franchise fee, at least the city council should have been notified that there was an issue with the contract.
First of all, we're getting into executive session negotiations and what had occurred underlying all of that. We are, at this point, those negotiations are ongoing. We're looking at the point in time of today of the termination. And at this point, that's why we're saying up to this point of the negotiation. So those were ongoing, confidential. And so those would not be part of a decision-making for the city council.
I'll have additional questions.
You can go ahead.
Can you give me a quick list as to what these SLRF funds could be used for? I know for housing, obviously. Just
Not been work. I don't know what that list is. If somebody else here knows it,
Becky Jones is here.
okay, thank you.
Good morning, Becky Jones from Financial
Can
Management.
you get closer to?
Sorry, I'm short. Is that better?
Yes.
Becky Jones from Financial Management and Administration. Some of the eligibility requirements are public health, COVID-19 mitigation and prevention, community violence intervention, household assistance, rent, food, utility, and internet, low-income housing and combating homelessness, assistance to small businesses, assistance to nonprofits, aid to impacted industries, specifically travel and tourism, premium pay for public sector working to combat COVID-19, which is really no longer applicable, water and wastewater infrastructure, broadband infrastructure, revenue replacement. We've maxed that out. We cannot take any more revenue replacement, administrative costs, emergency relief from natural disasters, surface transportation projects that must qualify under 3 specific pathways, and Title I projects, activities eligible under CDBG.
Thank you. Can you delve into the administrative cost? Can you just define that a little bit?
Yeah, administrative costs would be like salaries that are dedicated specifically to administration of the grant,
Of a grant?
of this particular
Okay.
grant.
And have we already used
We have.
that?
The
That
grant
was within
manager
the-
that manages this,
Okay.
his
Okay, so
salaries paid
that's
from
off
that
the-
grant.
That's off the.
As well as banking fees, for this, the costs that are tied to this fund, as well as Widow Bryan's fees for, compliance. Compliance,
Okay.
those are part of administrative costs.
Ms. Jones, first of all, thank you. The amount of time and effort that you and your team have put into administering the SLFRF should be well known by this board. We've had various study sessions regarding this, committees of the whole, where we have directed funding, and we have actually seen a lot of great successes, whether it be helping to provide emergency relief to families, to artists, to small businesses, for childcare, for a myriad of things, all of which are due and worthy, and we could spend a long time talking about those. I want to bring back our conversation, though, to today's topic, which is this agreement with MAA Krupa, and allow other commissioners to be able to ask questions if they have those regarding this actual topic we have today. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner OHara, thank you for your question. I was interested in the same issue. Ms. Jones, I'm sorry, just you didn't say it, but I wanted it to be clear because, Mr. Chairman, I agree. We have had lots of discussion on this topic, but quite honestly, it gets a little bit confusing in terms of what the status is of these funds. These are all restricted SLFRF funds. And the question that I have asked is, can any of these funds ever be used for direct tax relief? And I believe the answer is no, but I wanted to confirm that.
That is correct. They cannot be.
Okay. And then the follow-on question is, we have had many discussions about the, I'll call it the time sensitivity in which these funds have to be either expensed or encumbered. So could you remind us what the timeline, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
You're fine.
Could you remind us what the what the timeline is on these current funds, given this current circumstance?
Certainly. So we have to have a obligation by 12/31 of 2024. And that means you either have to have a grant agreement or a contract with a vendor by 12/31 of 2024. And they have to be fully spent by 12/31 of 2026.
Okay, so I would call it has to be encumbered, so contractually bound is what.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That is the U.S. Treasury's definition of obligation.
Thank you.
So when we think about that, we recognize, and even had the HSC gone forward into the full fruition that we would have hoped for, there was always going to be more work along the housing continuum that was necessary. We know that investments within the housing continuum fit within the definition of SLFRF. So as part of today's motion, I hope this board will take action to direct staff to bring back opportunities within investments in the housing continuum, so that while we may not have gotten exactly where we thought we could be with the HSC, we'll still be moving the needle forward, still towards ultimate goals in that North Star. And so I hope that's the direction that the board will provide today. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think while I'm disappointed that this opportunity to have a homeless service center in Lenexa is off the table at this point, I am very proud of what this board has done and what the community has done to raise awareness of the needs of people who are unhoused in our county. I feel I have no apologies for that. And I'm excited actually to move ahead. I'm always of the mind that, okay, that opportunity is behind us. Let's look at what opportunities are ahead of us. And I think that there are opportunities for us to invest in the housing continuum going forward. And it may not be exactly what we had planned or had originally thought about, but we have moved the awareness and the community interest in advocacy and support for addressing homelessness in Johnson County farther than it has ever been before. And we will continue to work on this, and we will continue to find solutions. This is not the end. It is the beginning of new opportunities. And so I'm excited to move ahead and continue the hard work we've been doing.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. And not only awareness of the homeless, but awareness of the need for affordable housing, something that we've worked very hard on here at the county and will continue. You know, I was a proponent of this homeless center. I thought it was a great solution. I supported it wholeheartedly, and again, this is something that I accept the decisions by the city of Lenexa. But to give that football analogy that you all have heard me say so many times, when you get knocked down, you don't stay down, you get back on your feet and you work towards solutions that are going to have positive impact on the community. And that's what I'm ready to do. That's what I think we should all do. You know, there's been mention, I am in an election coming up in November. And I can tell you, I've knocked on many, many doors. I've talked to all kinds of people throughout District 2. And those people were exactly what was stated here in the comments by the public, about 60-40 in favor of the homeless center. That's what I found throughout my campaigning. Now, when I've discussed with the 40% and given them information, many of those people said, "Oh, I better understand. Thank you for, you know, making that more clear. I guess I need to rethink where my position is." And so I think we did an outstanding job, just as Commissioner Hanslick said, and I think we need to, again, move forward. As the chairman said, we need to get to work. I'm ready to support staff and all of us on this dais to think of solutions for that SLF-RF money and to move forward. And that's what I plan on doing.
Commissioner Rice.
Yes, when I ran in 2018, one of the top concerns I heard from Northeast Johnson County was housing affordability. One of the first initiatives I brought to the commission that we would have a housing market study, a housing task force. Johnson County hadn't even talked about housing since 2008 when I served on the housing task force. It hadn't been a priority of this commission. It became a priority. Last retreat, we made it a continuing priority. We formed a subcommittee after that task force and looked at strategies. One strategy that I've heard over and over again from Northeast is home repair programs. And Ben Hobbert brought up about the tear downs. How do we help older adults stay in their home? Often and I hear this all the time from residents, their neighbor sold their house because they couldn't pay for the roof, the utilities. And so I really think the home repair program, what is an intervention to help people not have to sell their home for a tear down because they can't afford the maintenance. And I know our housing program's starting to bring that forth, but we weren't able to put very much money into that. So I hope we add additional when we look at this money for home repair, because I really think that would stabilize our housing market. The most housing we have was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's across the nation. There's been very little housing built in the last 20 years. So the most affordable housing we have is the housing that we have. And so that has been a real priority of mine. And the eviction mediation program has shown huge success. I was notified yesterday that they are out of rental assistance money, but they have served 187 people and helped them prevent them from homelessness. So we're moving forward on a strategy from that continuum that we worked on. And then we already implemented a strategy that has really worked well. And so I think the innovation, I love some of the innovation ideas of my constituent, Ben Hobbert, about, the warm weather shelter idea. The portable toilets, I think that's a great idea. So I wouldn't mind if we would have, before staff presents it in October, that we're given the list of ideas and maybe we could rate what we think our priorities are, like a survey. So then you come to the meeting and say, here's kind of the responses of the commission. Because a lot of times we don't get the packet till Tuesday, and that would give us more time. It'd just be kind of a rough poll. Of course, I'm going to say number one priority for me is home repair, and Commissioner Ashcraft will say, maybe we need to look at the land trust because that's in Olathe with Habitat. So I wouldn't mind some more, prioritization. The city of Prairie Village did that. And I've heard from residents, they really liked that the city, they took a whole list and then they prioritized, the council did. So that would be my suggestion. I just wanted to clarify in that 500,000 for the franchise. We had that in our contract, right? That we would not go over 500K. Is that correct?
Chair and Commissioner Fast, that is correct. We, as a matter of fact, it was originally set at 150,000. After negotiations, it was increased to 350. And that's where we got the difference in the amount of money. But we did seal that amount that we would not go over that amount. Excuse me, 500,000.
Yeah.
I want to correct that.
All right, I think everyone's had at least an opportunity to comment at this point. Let's go ahead and get a motion on, and then we'll continue the discussion. Commissioner Hansel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the board to terminate the real estate purchase agreement with MAA Krupa Lenexa LLC dated December 14th, 2023, due to City of Lenexa's denial of a special use permit to Restart Inc. Terminate the assignment agreement with Restart dated July 25th, 2024, due to the termination of the real estate purchase agreement with MAA Krupa Lenexa LLC. Authorize the chair to sign termination documents and direct staff to develop new options for the SLFRS funds with an investment on investments in the housing continuum.
Myers, second.
Moved by Commissioner Hanslick, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just a couple of observations, if I could. This has been a difficult process, and Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. Mr. Conor has done a marvelous job, and having an office next to him, I've seen him sweat, curse, and faint sometimes trying to get through this. It's been a challenge. So, Mr. Conor, thank you. And while there has been disagreement and consternation and confusion, you've always attempted to maintain the course, and I very much appreciate that. But it's also a reflection, Mr. Conor's angst, I think, is driven by the demands that the community and the commission and the environment have put on him, and especially related to the use of these funds. The federal government, in its infinite wisdom, set up some parameters that I'm sure for some government bureaucrat in Washington made a lot of sense, but actually implementing them has turned out to be a challenge. And Mr. Conor is a foot soldier in that war. That timeline and those expectations, I think, have contributed to a fair amount of confusion from time to time because the environment has required us to respond differently, set different parameters, different expectations as we've gone along. Mr. Conor and other staff members. I'm not trying to say Mr. Conor, while he may think he's Superman, maybe quite isn't the all-knowing, but has led that effort, have had a challenge trying to deal with that. And it came to a head this week with the city of Lenexa, and I understand that. But the homeless shelter is just part of the SFLR funds, and we have attempted to expend those monies on a variety of programs. And Mr. Chairman, from my vantage point, some of those programs, I think maybe all of them have been worthwhile, notable, but the results of those, I think, are not well established. And I would argue are probably mixed. And part of the reason for that is not because the intentions were bad. It's just sometimes the parameters for trying to set it out are impossible to meet. And that then becomes a concern because we're trying to, and Mr. Conor, I know will do the best possible job he can, but we're trying to put together a plan for over $6 million within a month to try to come up with an impact that will address the ongoing issues of homelessness and housing in Johnson County. And my concern is, while he may come up with a plan and on the surface it will probably sound and be very good, the actual implementation of it may be challenging. And so while I am not opposed to the emphasis on housing services, I'd like to ask that we also consider at least one option involving wastewater infrastructure, which qualifies for this program. So if we are not able to come up with established, measurable, outcome-driven programs within the next month, then we have as a default an opportunity to use those monies to underwrite infrastructure. So I'm not asking necessarily for a change in the motion, but I'd like to ask that as a realization of staff and include that as a component in whatever they bring forward. And I think Commissioner Fast's idea of having I'll call it a laundry list, that's not what, but a set of options to allow us to consider and ruminate on a little bit. I think that's a valuable strategy, and I would be supportive of that. And I know that's not a motion either, but I think operationally for me that would make sense. So that's my request. It's not a change in the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner
OHara. Thank you. Yes, I want to make an amendment to the motion that we open it up to all of the possibilities that the SLRF funds may be used for. I don't think limiting to housing is wise. I think that we need to be broader in our analysis. Unfortunately, our project in Lenexa was poorly planned. I always said that it was ill-conceived, ill-funded, and ill-placed. And the city council, 5-2 was a stunning defeat and a stunning message to the county commission that we did not do our upfront work. We did not get the city of Lenexa's buy-in, and it was disastrous. So I think that we need to open the list up. I think that the commissioners need to have the opportunity to give the staff suggestions, and that we have a list like Commissioner Fast suggested for us to review at least 10 days before the meeting that we're going to be voting on this. So that's very convoluted, and perhaps the legal counsel could help me with my amendment. I'll let you read it and then I'll say, yeah, that's it.
Did anybody understand that?
I don't.
I want,
Sorry, Commissioner, I'm not clear. Can
Okay.
you give me a little bit more and I'll help
Yeah.
you out?
okay, so I do not want this review of the staff to be limited to just housing.
Okay.
I want it opened up to any and all categories so that the commissioners can put input, give the staff input. Because we are the elected officials and we need to have more of a voice in this.
I understand.
Let me try to help out.
Okay, if you
Sorry.
can, because I understand what she's wanting to do from the motion.
Okay, so the amendment from Commissioner OHara is to, when staff brings back options. Well, first of all, let me clarify that whatever option staff brings back, the buck stops with the elected officials. We can decide to do whatever we determine. It doesn't necessarily have to be some proposal that staff brings back. There is a wastewater option. Commissioner Ashcraft is correct, and we always have that as the backstop as a possibility for a cash pay on an existing wastewater project. So at the end of the day, that regardless of what staff brings to us, that could be a possibility. So all that to be said, as Commissioner OHara wants all options on the table, all options are on the table. But the list the staff brings back, she wants it broader than just housing. Fair enough?
Yes, I want it. I want the board to be able to give staff some suggestions and that they look at them.
And we have that opportunity.
Well, no, because we are making a motion for staff to be focused on housing. I want to open it up that we have other
Well,
options.
we understand the amendment. You second it?
I will second it for discussion, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, okay.
clarification of what, if I may step in, I apologize, Chair. So I think where Commissioner, if I understand the distinction, because the motion as it's written right now does involve addressing your concerns for other options, but it does include emphasis on housing. If I understand you correctly, you just want to add an and consider options provided by commissioners.
That are within the
Right.
guidelines
add
of the
on,
SLRF funds.
So to make sure I understand, because it seems a little superfluous, but that the staff would bring options regarding housing while we still and always remain as an option, the ability for commissioners to discuss other options within the SLFRF,
Choose the staff.
which can be provided to the staff regardless of the motion.
That's what I think she wanted to make sure that she could individually go to staff and add that.
Which that opportunity exists regardless of the motion. Okay, Commissioner Hanslet.
Yeah, I won't be supporting that motion because I think it's unnecessary to reiterate. The motion includes direct staff to develop new options for the SLFRF funds with an emphasis on investments in the housing continuum. It doesn't say only housing continuum. So if any commissioners have thoughts, they bring those forward.
And should bring those forward. Commissioner Fast.
I mean, way it's written, I agree. It says an emphasis on housing services and it implies housing programs. And what Commissioner OHara just wants is all options under LSRF. I always feel that to brainstorm makes us all better, you know, and so what I liked what you said, just an emphasis on housing services and all options under SLRF. Would you take that as a friendly amendment?
Absolutely. That's, I don't, because as it's written, it appears that obviously the emphasis as it's written is on housing, but if we put that amendment in, then it opens it up. And brainstorming is good.
I'll also mention, as was previously said, we can brainstorm regardless, but also there is a temporal component here. And so directing staff and providing directing staff providing direction, excuse the ineloquence there, but actually providing direction and moving forward towards actual obligating these funds by the end of the year needs to be the priority. So while I appreciate that we can do a myriad of things, and Ms. Jones and her team have done a myriad of things here, we also need to be direct. So while I look forward to the conversation, I do want staff to focus on housing. So I won't be supporting the amendment, but if a commissioner comes back with a great idea, I am open to considering it. So further questions on the amendment, Commissioner Ashcraft?
May I ask the county counselor to read that amendment one more time?
Chair and Commissioners, it is the suggested motion as written, but at the end where it gets into and direct staff to develop new options for the SLFRF funds, including including an F and including housing services and programs, and for commissioners to be able to go to staff with options.
No. You read it before that all you need to do is and all other options available for SLFR.
Well, let's just leave off with an emphasis on housing service programs then. Just leave that off.
So
to develop new options for the SLFRF funds.
Right. And then we're not limiting what we're looking at.
Commissioner Ashcraft, one more opportunity for clarification, and then we're moving forward.
I'm sorry. So direct staff to develop new options for SFLRF funds, period.
And scratch the rest is what that's the amendment that we've all now landed upon.
Okay, thank you. And I was trying to figure that out to offer a comment. The challenge is the timeline for staff, and staff was asking for some limiting of the discussion on housing services. I'd expressed my concern about wastewater. But having said that, I understand the sensitivity and the desire of commissioners who might want to have some consideration of options outside of that. So I will support the amendment, but I don't oppose the existing motion either, or the main motion. So I will support the amendment.
Commissioner Myers?
So for those same very reasons is why I would support the main motion. And then I think there's every opportunity for anyone to bring up any other solutions, but to convolute, and because of the time that we are faced with, again, we're putting way too much on staff to expect them to come up with every solution that can be made for SLFRF funding. We already know what that includes. We know the list. We as commissioners, if we have a brainstorm of an idea that we think we want to move forward, we're able to do that. We already know we have discussed the backup plan of the wastewater plant situation, and that is easily done in no time at all. But to expect staff to bring forward every option that fits under SLFRF, to me, that's unreasonable. And I agree. I think there needs to be an emphasis on housing services and programs.
Thank you. So Commissioner Fast.
Yeah, that's why I brought up that we should have a poll. They could just list it so they don't have to do all this work, and then we prioritize. I want to emphasis on housing, but there could be infrastructure like utility assistance. So there's corollaries to housing that supports housing. So that's why I wanted it more open. But I think we're getting into semantics anymore.
And I appreciate that. And Commissioner Fast, the two programs that you brought up earlier in your comment, to me, those fit within investments in the housing continuum. So I'd say that while To Commissioner Meyer's point, the reason I support the motion is it does provide some direction, knowing that some things are physically related to structural housing components, but there's other things within the housing continuum, investments in services and people that also would fit within that arena. So as not to overly burden staff, but to at least provide some direction, given the temporal limitations. Okay, everybody's had an opportunity to speak on this. I'll call the question on the amendment. Ask for a second.
Second.
The question is on the amendment. Will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Fast?
Aye.
Commissioner Myers?
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand is absent. Chairman Kelly?
No, 3-3, therefore the amendment is not adopted. Therefore, back to the motion as originally presented. Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes, I would like division on this. I want the the two amendments on canceling the contract and the assignment as one motion, and then how we allocate or how we are directing staff on allocation of funds. I want separate.
Well,
Divide the motion.
Yes, divided.
second from Commissioner Ashcraft. For the reasons we just discussed, I'm not going to support the amendment. I think we have direction. I think staff is willing and able to hear from commissioners at any time. I appreciate that. And if there's a good opportunity, we can also discuss amongst ourselves. And that's the thing, when we talk about the solutions for our community, it's really easy to criticize. It's really easy to shoot down an idea, especially an idea that hasn't been done before, or something that would be a catalytic change within our community. It's a whole different challenge to be able to actually try to build something, to grow, to innovate, to work with partners, both public, private, philanthropic, parochial. And a lot of times those projects don't come with clear answers or direction because they haven't been done before. All to say is I appreciate that we have that opportunity to continue to try to build and to grow as a community. I'll keep trying to do that. It's going to be easy to criticize. At the end of the day, it's always going to take some courage to be able to move things forward. And really a focus and a willingness on action. That's where I'm going to be focused. I'm going to support the motion as it has been previously read by Commissioner Hanslick. And I think we've all had an opportunity to talk about that. But for the division, Commissioner Ashcraft, you seconded, did you have a question or comment on it?
No, I think it's any commissioner's right to ask to divide a motion for clarity and discussion.
Okay. Well, here we are.
Mr. Chairman. May I speak?
Please.
Thank you. I think it's been exemplified that my marvelous ideas do not gain much traction on this board by these comments that you have just expressed. I'm simply asking for the motion to be divided. I'm not asking for a huge give on the part of the board. It's simply that obviously we have to have the contracts canceled. And I want to mention that we've already spent $500,000 of the taxpayers' money through due diligence and earnest money that is non-refundable. And I'm simply asking for the question to be divided because I strongly feel that we should open the process up. And my voice is not heard. And that gives me an opportunity, but I lost that battle, so that's fine. And I'm just asking for the courtesy to be able to have clarity on my vote.
The questions or comments at this time?
The vote's on the division.
Yes, is on division. Okay, would the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Fast?
Aye.
Commissioner Myers?
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand is absent. Chairman Kelly?
Okay, so I'm going to support this. Yes, we can divide. The motion is 4-2, and here's why. because we need to move swiftly forward on this. And I apologize if anyone wants to switch their vote. This is procedural for me. I understand that Commissioner OHara wants to be able to support the termination of the contract. She does not support the direction that may exist regarding the housing continuum. I hope this does not then bog us down in moving forward, but I am going to support it. So if anyone else wants to change their vote on this procedural matter, this is an opportunity to do that. Okay, 4 votes in favor, 2 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Okay, so now to the first part of the motion for the termination of the agreements. Is there further discussion or questions or comments? Commissioner OHara.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Comments or questions? Okay, if not, will the clerk call the roll?
Commissioner Fast?
Aye.
Commissioner Myers?
Myers, aye.
Commissioner OHara?
This is on the contract, correct? Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand is absent. Chairman Kelly?
Aye. We have 6 votes in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Okay, to the second part of the motion. No, I think it is, as stated. Is there further questions or comments at this time? Commissioner OHara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want it understood that I do not oppose housing to be included, but I feel my stance is that this is too narrow of a focus and that the board members should have an opportunity by having it specified that other alternatives may be considered. So I will not be supporting this because it is too closed. Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Commissioner OHara's debate on this. The way the motion is stated, while it might suggest that the efforts of staff will be focused on housing and housing services and programs only, because of this discussion, I believe it's been impressed upon staff, particularly Mr. Conor, that we're looking for a broader understanding, and emphasis is a guideline, but should not exclude other dimensions. And I think by this debate, Commissioner OHara has actually achieved what she wanted with staff. But having said that, I'm comfortable with the motion, especially now since Mr. Conor has been the beneficiary of this discussion, that when it comes back to us, while it will rightfully include comments and observations and suggestions about housing services and programs, it will include other items, especially wastewater. Okay, thank you.
All right. No further questions or comments on that. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll on the second part of the motion.
Commissioner Fast?
Aye.
Commissioner Myers?
Myers, aye.
Commissioner OHara?
No.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand is absent. Chairman Kelly?
5 votes in favor, 1 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Okay. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming today. And I want to take just one quick moment of personal privilege to say that Commissioner Myers doesn't get the only football analogy today. And that is that while he does a really good job of that, there's one that stuck with me that I wanted to share. And I remember 2019, the AFC Championship game. Do you guys remember the Chiefs playing against the Patriots and a last-minute offsides call when we were that close to finally getting to the promised land of the Super Bowl? That was a really disheartening day. I don't think that season was a complete waste. I think when you look back at how that set the foundation for going to the Super Bowl for the next 5 years, winning 3 Super Bowls, having the opportunity to win 3 in a row, you built the foundation that could lead to something good. And I think that's what we've done here. So I want to thank all of our partners for doing that. And I look forward to what we can do ahead. I appreciate the emphasis that we'll have coming back with the SLFRF on the investments in the housing continuum. and continued work to help all residents of Johnson County. So thank you all for coming out this morning. There's no further items on today's agenda. Therefore, we are adjourned. Everybody enjoy your Thursday. Thank you for making this special call meeting. We're adjourned.